big as it gets, and I won't tell you on what.
The White House continues to tease what President Trump himself is calling a, quote, earth-shattering announcement in the coming days. And according to several reports, it's all about drug prices, Medicare drug prices, which will affect tens of millions of Americans. In a move that will no doubt send shockwaves through big pharma boardrooms, President Trump wants to implement something called the Favored Nation Plan, which means very simply that if a company offers a drug in a country like Canada for $50 less, then it has to offer that same price here in America. Now, President Trump tried to do this in his first term, only for it to be blocked by lobbyists and the courts. So as President Trump works to bring drug manufacturing back to America, he's also working to bring those drug prices down. President Trump has ordered the FDA to work with drug companies in bringing facilities back home. He says it's a matter of national security. And when you crunch the numbers, you can clearly see why. 90% of antibiotics are made in China, along with 70% of acetaminophen. That's the Tylenol in your medicine cabinet. And that Advil in your purse? Well, 95% of that comes from China, too. Not to mention that a quarter of all of our drugs are made all the way in Ireland. Well, joining me now is FDA Commissioner Marty Makary. Commissioner, great to have you back on the show. All right, so, I mean, you guys are doing a really bang-up job of teasing this big announcement. Is it about lowering Medicare drug prices?
Well, Elizabeth, I think every announcement coming out of this White House has been big. I don't know what the announcement is that he's referring to, and if I did, I wouldn't get ahead of the president. But he is deeply committed to lower drug prices, not in small incremental ways, but with something major, because for far too long, Americans have been getting ripped off. Look at the price of the same drug in the United States compared to parts of Europe. 8, 9, 12 times higher in the United States. And this president does not like to see Americans getting ripped off.
Why does that happen? Why are Brits and the French and the Canadians all able to buy the same exact drugs for such a lower price than Americans?
Well, this has been a problem that has increased in small incremental ways, and it's crept up to the point now where the disparities are so big. I think a lot of people are asking that very question. In part, it's because some of the payers of those medications are not asking for lower prices. A lot of it is simply because the companies can. They tell us that they have been working to try to reduce that disparity. But, you know, everyday Americans need to see lower prices. Yeah. And that is a bigger part of this administration's agenda.
So President Trump did try to do this in his first term. He failed. Do you think he'll be successful this time?
Well, you know, right now there's a lot of discussions about how to use everything possible in the power of the executive branch to lower drug prices. So there's a lot of discussions that have been going on since the president got elected and will continue to go on. Our job at the FDA is to do our part, and we can do that by increasing the number of generic and biosimilar drugs to increase competition and lower prices. So we're doing everything we can to do that, and we're looking at the regulatory framework that delays the approval of generic drugs, that delays the approval of biosimilars, and you know, people shouldn't have just one option when it comes to a drug that can be made and has a patent expire so that it can be made at a lower price.
Right. The only problem being that the generic drugs are a heck of a lot cheaper, which is why so many Americans and, frankly, our insurance companies insist that we buy the generic version instead of the brand label version. I want to ask you about something else. You were in the Oval Office with the president when he signed an executive order instructing drug companies to begin making medicines here. 97% of our antibiotics are made in China, 95% of our ibuprofen. But it would take years to move all those drug manufacturing factories back here, won't it?
Well, a lot of pharmaceutical companies have already responded to the call of the president to move manufacturing in the United States. This has been going on for decades, and no one has been talking about it until now. And why is it that we only have enough anesthetics for surgery to last us a couple months in the United States? Why are we so dependent, even after the bad lessons of COVID? So at the FDA, we're doing our part to ensure that there are incentives for U.S. manufacturing, that we're cutting the red tape, and that we don't put foreign manufacturing sites for medications, we let them off easy, and we put American sites through the ringer.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.